2, or 3. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back. Oh, it's root for the Cubbies. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
This is
from WBRN Radio and the Boston Red Network, the Monday Morning Quarterback. This is a program we've been doing for roughly about 10 years, quarterbacking talk shows. Today we'll be quarterbacking Bernie's announcement, Day 2 in Chicago. When we are concluded here, you'll hear from Bernie, Senator Nina Turner, Ben Cohen, and others from Chicago, talking about Bernie's program for the American people in 2020 and how progressive people move forward. Basic things there is organize on several levels in your community, or if you are retired or have the time, go to states that need organizing, whether you be in Arizona, California, whatever. If not this winter, in the spring, especially for seniors, and of course we're in that age group now, that have the time, if only just a few days a week. For other progressives, the idea of donating 10, 25 bucks, whatever. If a million people donate $5, that's $5 million to Bernie. $10, that's $10 million, and $20, that is $20 million. And the idea of donating the money is to get out the message. The message is very important. Because if you get the message out in Montana, in North Dakota, in West Virginia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Texas, and to various regions of it, the border area, along the border there, in California, down in San Diego, through the Imperial Valley, where the agricultural sector of California is located, up in Oregon, in Washington State, across to the Dakotas, down to Illinois and Iowa. So there's a lot of work to be done. What we don't do on our programming is tell people how to vote. We will suggest to you to turn out in an election, and that you make your preference, selection, whatever you want to call it. And we clearly explain to you the candidates that we are backing in the election. We still, incidentally, speaking of that, we have DJ Trump at the Conservative Action CPAC. We still have to bring that program in, as we also have Jerome Powell. He's head of the Federal Reserve, over on the Numbers Man part of our programming. And we need to get that up from last week, so we're a little behind. We have This Week in Economics. It is now up. You can get that on Stitcher, iHeart, Spreaker, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you can find it. The RSS feed, as we continue to modernize it, so you can find our programming. Or if it's on the political side, Boston Red, you can find it also. An interesting discussion there started by Stephanie Kenton, who used to be in Kansas City. Now she's at Stony Brook, talking about the theory of modern monetary theory. has been out there. Paul Krugman has written several articles on it, and very interesting theory there. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has talked about it. Bernie Sanders has talked about it. The whole idea here that, and this is nothing new, the Fed is exploring that, the use of deficit spending to get much needed infrastructure repair, education funding for universal medical care, or Medicare for all, those kinds of things, how it can be done, and defeat the idea that taxation takes care of the entire deficit. It does not. But those are some things that need to be discussed in the public arena. Over the weekend, DJ Trump said he's fighting a socialism, and that socialism would never come to the U.S. This is a very interesting campaign position. He labeled the Democratic Party socialistic, and the reactionary sectors, moderates, etc., in the Democratic Party are running away from that. It'd be interesting to see where they get or don't get with these candidates. We also had an announcement by Eric Holder. Eric Holder Jr. was the Attorney General, that he's not running for president. A new hat falls in the ring every week over the weekend. Inslee, the governor of Washington, threw his hat in the ring, so to speak, as a climate change candidate. Hickenlooper as one of these moderate candidates. There's a lot of moderate candidates in here, but the plain truth is there will be only one nominee of the Democratic Party. There'll be some independents running, but it gets down to it, and looking at it from a financial standpoint, millions of dollars will be spent on candidates, sort of like Baby Bush, Jeb Bush, spent millions of dollars, didn't get one delegate. That is something that has to stop. We have to look at it in terms of financing and where it comes. Now, these self-funded candidates, it doesn't matter if they want to spend, like Howard Schwartz spend several $1 million. They spend several $1 million. That's their prerogative. But this campaign is we're just in March. It's going to be a very, very interesting campaign. That's why progressives have to get the message out. Because as the message gets out, it resonates in all these communities. You had it resonating in Brooklyn. You have it resonating in Chicago, which means it seeps into Iowa and into Indiana. They get the same TV feeds. So these ideas are out in the public. It does change things. The idea of insulin costing $500 or $400, that is what the person has to pay, and their insurance premium. This is farcical. It just simply cannot go on. Big Pharma has gotten too big, period. And there are a number of solutions out there. There's pressure on there. DJ Trump claimed he was going to work something out with the pharmaceuticals. Unfortunately, his working out doesn't fit the bill. It doesn't add up. That's as farcical as blaming the lawyer, hatchet man, fixer, what do you want to call him, Cohen, for his troubles in Vietnam at the summit. They're not interconnected. But this has been a rough year for DJ as he ran over to CPAC. Some people that are accepting the message. But part of the problem is there's a disconnect. This candidate Trump said he was going to drain the swamp. But he switched his policies to a right-wing policy towards the environment, you name it, is went right-wing, voter suppression, trying to gut as much of the Voting Rights Act as possible. making it harder for trade unions to organize, cutting benefits in food sufficiency or food stamps. These are all things that harm people. Closing down the government for almost a month. Almost 1 million workers are thrown out, no paychecks. Those are the kinds of things add up through so-called side issues. They come back to haunt you. Now this idea of this lunatic wall, it is passed the House. In the Senate, they're having a big debate on it. The senator from Kentucky, I guess he's a junior senator, has said he would not support it, and several other senators, Rand Paul, will not support it for various reasons. So Trump said he'll do a veto. Well, the problem is, yes, he can do a veto, but this puts that issue front and center on the Republican Party. And his numbers, I saw a poll there, he's running anywhere from 45, 44, 43% Now this is in March. Is he going up or is he going down? That's a very big question. But these issues open up many things. And the systematic campaign against Representative Omar, that will reach a critical mass. The whole campaign in Venezuela, this character that trained in the U.S. at George Washington University, etc., Guaido, said he will return to Venezuela. He's going to organize further demonstrations. But those demonstrations in Venezuela have not been very effective. His food caravan program fell apart. So he's got these various right-wing dictators like the one in Bogota, Colombia, and various others supporting his dilapidated government. But time is running out on Guaido and various other puppets to see where they are going. If the Venezuelan people stick together and back their President Nicolas Mora, they will win this fight. There is not a problem about that. Let me get the rest of this up here. Twitter King Booker, what's he doing? He's gambling his 2020 hopes on an unlikely proposition. In this most acid and divisive political environment in recent memory, Twitter King Booker is gambling his presidential hopes on the unlikely proposition that it's still possible to summons people to grace. No idea what he's doing. And the word is that Democratic Senator from Jersey used more often than any other as he travels the early primary states. What called me to run for president is because I think we need a revival of civic grace. We need to reignite a more courageous apathy. Booker told a gathering in downtown Arcade here, where is he? Here. Manchester, New Hampshire. He stands in a sharp contrast from the utter lack of grace that has defined the presidency of the current occupant of the White House. I think this campaign is an opportunity to be more about an election, but also trying to return our country to an ability to address persistent injustice that exists long before DJ Trump. Booker told an audience in an interview, told me in an interview, sorry about that, we have a toxic water crisis across the country that have proliferated before Trump. We have a criminal justice system that was broken before DJ Trump. And lower wages in this company as a percentage of GDP. We talked about that on Numbers Man. You can listen to that. This antidote to cynicism is not the message some Democrats want to hear as they are looking for their champion to take on Trump and the Republicans. Maybe we should think about kicking ourselves first and loving them later, says Wendy E. Thomas, a representative from Merrimack, told Trump. This isn't the first time Twitter King Booker, the first time he heard this kind of skepticism. He was the mayor of the urban ghetto of Newark from 2006 to 2013. The police department aggressively employed stop and frisk policy that disproportionately, obviously, affected the followers of O.J. Simpson. He worked with Betty DeVos, the Trump education secretary, a mad woman. And his political career benefited as his city did from close ties to Wall Street and Silicon Valley. He didn't get much out. He worked with Betty DeVos. That tells you right there. Since the real test for Booker will likely come when the country gets a chance to see the Democratic contenders side by side in the debate, it's coming before that, because what is more and more happening in two distinct areas: fundraising, because you need fundraising to get your message out there, and organizing. That's where you see people like Elizabeth Warren, that is fairly well known, but she needs to do the fundraising and do the organizing. And the problem is, when you have as many progressives as you do out there, better organization and better fundraising does in fact pay off. And some of the candidates are having problems. I looked at the other day, saw a figure somewhere about Amy Klobuchar and her smaller donations, about $500,000. That is okay, but the problem is when she gets out of New Hampshire and Iowa and starts to go into Super Tuesday, she's going to need a fundraising base and need organizing, and you need the fundraising to do the early organizing. Of course, you can do organizing now in Iowa relatively cheaply, because you can buy TV, and especially the smaller towns where she needs it, at a relatively cheaper price, and you can get operatives at a relatively cheaper price. And the same thing in New Hampshire if you're not running out of Boston. But the situation is, you have to do those things early, and if you don't have the human power to do it with, you got some problems, because you can't wait until December and January and even November and October later this year, which Q4, the fourth quarter, to get everything in place. You have to have it in place early, and you have to start getting your fundraising together. And this is the part of the problem. Now, Twitter King Booker, he's dealing with Silicon Valley, with the rich, and with Wall Street, so he'll have money. And some of the others will have money to get into Super Tuesday, because they have to go to California, and that's where Kamala Harris will be waiting on them. So these are some of the things that we see coming. Let me just make sure that this is by Robert Samuelson. His father was Paul Samuelson. Anyway, running in the Wall Street Journal, Princeton economist Alan Blinder, been around a long time. The Obama Trump economic boom. This may be a bad label for what may soon become the longest economic expansion in U.S. history. Anyone who regularly reads this column knows that I'm a great skeptic in assigning credit for good economic times to particular presidents, but Blinder's turn on the phrase has a virtue of spreading the glory between two. Yeah, that is a bit disingenuous in my thing. He congratulates himself for the strong stock market, up 7.7 trillion since his election on November 8, 2016. Wilshire Associates reports solid job creation No doubt. How much praise Trump deserves for his performance is unclear when reviewing the figures. You should remember that the last 2 years of President Obama, the economy created roughly 200,000 jobs per month. As for the stock market rise, it was at 18.8 trillion from its lowest point in 2009 to Trump's election. That's a lot of money. More to the point, Barack Obama delivered to Trump an economy that has overcome the worst psychological effects of the financial crisis and accompanying what he calls Great Recession. We call it Depression. We talked about the psychology of the market, the response to the Fed under Chairman Bernanke and the Treasury under Gantner contributed significantly to the turnaround, no doubt about that. The country's economy grew at about 2%, an average of about 3%. He plowed a sizable tax cut of this 1.5 trillion over a decade. So let me finish this up because we won't have time to do it all on this. There is, however, one overlooked danger of the long expansion of post-World War II era, and the 60s and 70s booms were followed by tremendous crises and subpar performances. And this is on the modern theory of monetary policy. They talk about this also. The 60s boom succumbed to rising inflation, which peaked at 13%. Actually, was more than that. The demoralizing of millions of Americans. The 90s tech boom, we remember it, ultimately contributed to the devastating 2007-2009 depression. Well, you had a recession before that on the tech boom. So it's almost if there's an unwritten law requiring that big booms be preceded by big busts. Well, that'll be interesting. Anyway, let's go do the sports here. The National Basketball Association will segue there. We had the Trailblazers at the Bulls in Chicago. It was the Trailblazers at 123-118. The Knicks and Clippers in Los Angeles. Clippers 128-107. The Magic and Cavaliers in Cleveland. It was the Cavaliers 107-93. And in overtime, the Raptors and Pistons in the Motor City. Pistons 112-107. The T-Wolves and Wizards in D.C. It was Wizards 35-121. And finally, the Grizzlies and Thunder in OKC, a 4-point game. The Thunder 99-95. On to Major League Baseball, spring training, that is. We had the Astros and Nationals. It was the Nationals 4-2. The Marlins and the Atlanta team. Atlanta 6-5. The Twins and our Red Sox. Red Sox 9-7. I'm a National League person, incidentally. The Mets and Cardinals. It was the Cardinals 10-8. The Rays and Pirates. Rays 10-5. The Tigers and Yankees. Yankees 7-1. In overtime, the Phillies and Twins tied up 3-3. The Yankees and Blue Jays was the Blue Jays 5-2. The Reds and Brewers. Reds 11-5. The Royals and Cleveland. It was Kansas City 13-7. The Padres and Rangers. The Rangers 11-3. After all that, and on White Sox and Cubbies 13-5 for Cubbies. Tigers and Orioles. Orioles 7-5. The Rangers and Dodgers. The Dodgers pulled that one out 6-3. The Diamondbacks and Mariners. The Mariners 7-3. The Athletics and Angels. Angels 4-1. And finally, the Giants and Rockies. Rockies 9-3. to hockey season, the hockey league, I should say. The Capitals and Rangers, it was Capitals 3-2. Flyers and Islanders 4-1. Canucks were shut out by the Golden Knights 3-0. The Avalanche and Ducks, the Ducks 2-1. The Senators beat the Panthers 3-2. The Jets of Winnipeg over the Blue Knights 5-2. Or was it 6-2? 5-2. Okay. I don't have my glasses on. I have to get some new glasses anyway. The Predators 3-2 over the Wild, and finally the Blackhawks were beaten by the Sharks 5-2. On to women's basketball, the college hoops, that is. We have a lot of them. Louisville 67-40. Virginia and Notre Dame 103-66. Mississippi State 66-64 over South Carolina. Oregon 66-59 over Arizona State. Stanford 72-53 over Washington. The Oregon State and Arizona. It was Oregon State 65-60 there. University of Miami and North Carolina was North Carolina 72-68, and Kentucky and Georgia. Kentucky 58-53, and Northwestern and Iowa 74-50, and Marquette and Providence. It was Marquette 80-57. Syracuse and Boston College. Syracuse 66 to 59. Arkansas and Texas A&M. A&M 66-53. Florida State 64 to Georgia Tech 55. Drake 70-61 from Mississippi. Missouri State, sorry about that. And Colorado and UCLA 84-50. And let me find women's basketball there somewhere here. Oh, here we are, I guess. Or did we just do women's? Yeah. We did women's. Where is the men's? Somewhere. Somehow we... Okay. Michigan and Maryland. Michigan 69-62. Creighton of Omaha 66-60 for Marquette. This is men's, short and sweet here. Washington and Stanford. Washington 62-61, a 1-point game. Nonetheless, this will do it for us. Let's be on to Senator Bernie Sanders in Chicago, where he went to school at the University of Chicago. A good rally. So, no talk shows today, but we'll be quarterbacking Bernie Sanders. We have other programming still coming. The Open Source Report, we don't want to forget it. We have DJ Trump at CPAC is out there. And there are a number of others have been in there for quite a while. We want to do something on Vanessa Tyson and the situation there with Fairfax in Virginia. Anyway, this will do it for us. Have a good week, everyone. Good day.
Poet, woman, resistor. And despite how young I might look in comparison to everyone else here, including Bernie, I am in fact 18 years old and of voting age. From a very young age, I became aware of the way in which politics affects the way I exist in the world. At the age of 12, in 2013, I saw Francis Scott Key Elementary, my severely underfunded, predominantly black elementary school located on the west side of Chicago, get shut down at the end of my 6th grade year. I saw the school my friends attended a few blocks down get closed too. At the age of 12, I was forced to grasp the concept of accountability, questioning the decisions of those in power. Who allowed and approved of the closing of 50-plus schools, most of which were located in what I later to learn to be predominantly Black and Latinx, severely under-resourced communities in Chicago? In 2015, at the age of 14, I saw images of the shooting death of innocent 17-year-old Laquan McDonald blast around the country. I saw his death justified and his character crucified, even as young Black and brown people across the city rose up and demanded justice and a transformation of a racist system that had failed Laquan.
O'Hare Airport, and I lit up I got off and stood on the tarmac. I lit a cigarette and vomited because I didn't smoke. They called me last night, and I said, "What do you want me for?" And they said, "Because you went to school with Bernie, my buddy, in 1962. All these little demonstrations led by people like Bernie, who did it because they believed in justice. They believed in the idea written by Thomas Jefferson, of all people.
We need this leadership to keep our community ours. This campaign is bigger than any one place or region. This is a campaign about uniting the entire country to defeat Donald Trump and transform this country into the compassionate, progressive country we know it can be. This is about creating America that provides equitable opportunities, create equitable justice under the law, and extends equal rights to all. Thank you.
Voted against NAFTA before being against NAFTA was cool. Voted against going to war in Iraq twice. And then in 2007, he defeated the richest man in Vermont to become my senator. As a senator, he worked with conservatives to force the first ever audit of the Federal Reserve Bank, which revealed $16 trillion in ultra-low interest loans to big banks and numerous instances of conflicts of interest after the financial collapse of 2008. Then he led a successful effort to stop the so-called chain CPI, and that enabled recipients of Social Security and veterans to continue to receive the benefits that they deserve. And last September, Bernie introduced the Stop Bezos Act. That stands for Stop Bad Employers by Zeroing Out Subsidies. It requires large corporations that pay lousy wages, that force their employees to use Medicaid and food stamps in order to get by, to reimburse the federal government for those costs. A month later, Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, raised their minimum wage to $15 an hour. You know, when Bernie ran for president the first time and said he wouldn't take any big money, I thought it was a mistake, that he would never be able to raise enough money to be competitive. And then I came to understand it. He knew that if there weren't enough small dollar donors to get him into office, that he would never have the army of people that would be necessary to enable him to accomplish the big changes that he needs once he gets there. So, what do I think about Bernie, the man? Well, he's always been the same. He never wavers. He has a clear vision of how to make America kind again. He's not a fancy guy. He's pretty down home, no airs. And I like his hairstyle. That never changes either. He doesn't go with the trends, he sets the trend. Donor-funded campaigns, universal health care, publicly funded colleges and universities. Bernie, the trendsetter? Who knew? He's already leading the country. Just look at all the other candidates that are following him. Thank you very much. It's been great to be here with you, Chicago.
Next, give a warm welcome to Congressman Ro Khanna.
It is where they stand at times of challenge and controversy. The measure of a man. In Chi-Town, I say to you, as the speakers before me have laid out the measure of the man by the name of Bernard Sanders. See, where we hail from, what we come from, what we do matters. And if I might, if I may, because I am the daughter of a preacher, and today is Sunday, in the Christian tradition, it says the following: you shall know the tree by the fruit that it bears. I am here to tell you that Senator Bernie Sanders bears good fruit, righteous fruit, the fruit of justice. Being a first-generation college graduate at the University of Chicago, he understands what the movement for civil rights, for racial justice and equality means. He was in that fight. But it's not just about what he did way back then. When some of you in this room were not even born, it is also about what he does right now in this moment with the power that he has. He could have easily, sisters and brothers, I want you to hear me, he could have easily stopped his work after the campaign in 2016, but he did not do that. This is the man who was on the front line with striking Verizon workers. This is the man who stood up with the Marriott workers. This is the man who stood up to Amazon and said, you will pay $15 an hour. This is the man who told Disney that you are not so much the happiest place on earth until you pay your workers $15 an hour. This is the man who in 2017, and I was there with him, and Brother Danny Glover was there with him, and Brother and our NAACP brother Cornell Brooks was there with him when he marched on Mississippi, in Canton, Mississippi, to support Nissan workers who were trying to unionize with the UAW. This is the man. The ultimate measure of a man is where he stands in times of controversy and challenge. And sisters and brothers, can I just tell you, in the early 2000s, if I might, if I may, when he was a congressman and he got word that IBM was going to cut the pensions of older voters by 50%. And he stood up with Congressman Dennis Kucinich from the great state of Ohio. And he purchased 5 shares of stock. Now, I want you to wrap your minds around this. I want you to just wrap your minds around this. A congressman from Vermont went to Cleveland, Ohio, to stand by the side of Congressman Dennis Kucinich. He wanted to speak at the stockholders meeting, but in order to speak at the meeting, he had to purchase shares to do it, to stand up for older workers whose pensions were going to be cut in half, the ultimate measure of a man. And sisters and brothers, we got the receipts. We got all kinds of receipts. So let me just say this to you, because I'm feeling this thing. They didn't give a sister a cordless mic tonight. They said I would be all over the stage. But I just want you to wrap your minds around this. That with these hands, can you raise your hands wherever you are in this space right now? With these hands, we will transform this country. With these hands, we will have Medicare for all. With these hands, we will have college for all. With these hands, we will secure for ourselves and future generations a better life. With these hands, we will have criminal justice reform. With these hands, we will strike down the vestiges of racism and discrimination and homophobia and xenophobia. With these hands. With these hands. And to my otherly abled sisters and brothers. See, we are on assignment. And our mission is so high, we can't get over it. And our mission is so low, we can't get under it. And our mission is so wide, we can't get around it. Be we black or brown or red or white or yellow or the swirl in between, whether we be gay or straight or Jew or Gentile or no religion at all, with these hands, whether we be Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, with these hands, we deserve better, sisters and brothers. So don't let the haters fool you, because haters gonna hate. But it's all right, we got the receipts. So I want you to be committed to this thing, because Senator Sanders cannot do this without us. He is a visionary who has always seen ahead of his time. He was one of only 2 white elected officials in the entire United States of America to back the Reverend Jesse Jackson's run for President of the United States of America. With these hands. We gonna do this. And see, people know that we gonna do this, so the haters gonna come, but I want you to ignore them, and I want you to keep your eye on the prize. Because with these hands, we will rise. So before I bring out the man, I want you to recommit yourselves that when you leave here tonight, that you're going to do all that you can. All that you can. I want you to take on the spirit of one of my sheroes, Harriet Tubman who said these words, if you hear the dogs barking, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. If you want clean water, clean air, clean food, keep going. If we want a system that doesn't treat poverty as a crime, you must. If you want a better country, a better world for yourselves and future generations, you must. And if you dare to dream a bigger dream, you must. And if you know that we are in this fight together, you must. And with these hands, we will elect Senator Bernie Sanders as the next president of the United States of America.
Nice to have a gathering with a few friends. A small, intimate, quiet get-together. What a turnout, and thank you so much for being here. Let me thank the Tommy's Reunion Choir, Tina Watson Conley for that great national anthem rendition, Destiny Harris, Danny Lyon, Ashley Galvin Ramos. Let me thank the Ice Cream King from Vermont, Ben Cohn. Let me thank one of the outstanding members of the U.S. Congress, Ro Khanna. And let me thank my fellow political revolutionary, Senator Nina Turner. We are gathered here tonight to complete the political revolution we started 3 years ago. Ago, they thought we were kind of crazy and extreme. Not the case anymore. 3 years ago, the ideas that we brought forth here in Illinois and all over the country were rejected by Democrats. Not anymore. We have begun the political revolution, and now we're gonna complete it. I want to thank all of you for being part of a campaign which will be unprecedented in modern American history. Our campaign is not only going to win the Democratic nomination, we are not only going to defeat Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in modern American history, but with your help, we're going to do more than that. We're not only going to defeat Trump, we're going to transform the United States of America. Nope. No, it ain't Bernie, it is you. It must be you. And the whole point of the political revolution is that nobody, not Bernie or anybody else, can do it alone. We have got to do it together by the millions. Now we're talking. That's right. Together, not me, but together, we are going to finally in this country create an economy and government that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Together, we are going to create a political system which is based on the democratic principles of one person, one vote, and end a corrupt political system in which billionaires are buying elections. Today, I want to welcome you to a campaign which says loudly and proudly that the underlying principles of our government will not be greed, kleptocracy, hatred, authoritarianism, and pathological lying. The principles of our government will not be racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, and religious bigotry. All of that is going to end. The principles of our government will be based on justice, on economic justice, on social justice, on racial justice, and environmental justice. Today, I want to welcome you to a campaign which tells corporate America, the billionaire class, and the other powerful special interests who control so much of our economic and political life that we will no longer tolerate their insatiable greed. A greed which has resulted in our country having more income and wealth inequality than any other major country on earth. Now, I understand that it is not talked about too much in Congress or in the media, but in my view, we can no longer stand idly by and allow 3 families in this country to own more wealth than the bottom half of America. We cannot allow CEOs of major corporations to make over 300 times as much as their workers. We cannot allow the very rich to become even richer, while over 20% of our children live in poverty, while veterans who defended this country sleep out on the streets, and seniors cannot afford the medicine they need. We will no longer accept 46% of all new income going to the top 1%, while millions of Americans are forced to work 2 or 3 jobs just to survive, and over half of our people live paycheck to paycheck. We will no longer accept a situation in which, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, our younger generation will have a lower standard of living than their parents. They will have lower wages, higher debt, unaffordable housing, and less mobility. Now, I've got 4 kids and 7 grandchildren. Downward mobility is not acceptable to me or the American people. Today, we launch the political revolution. But I want you all to be very clear, and it's important that you are understanding what we are up against. This struggle is not just about defeating Donald Trump. This struggle is about taking on the incredibly powerful institutions that control the economic and political life of our country. And I am talking about Wall Street. I am talking about the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry and the military-industrial complex and the prison-industrial complex. Brothers and sisters, there is too much concentration of wealth and power in this country, and this is a fight we are not going to run away from.